let's talk about that feeling. You know the one, where your dating life feels like it's stuck on a loop, always ending up in the exact same frustrating place. Well, we're about to unpack a really honest list of relationship habits. And just a heads up, some of these might feel a little personal. So I've got to ask you right off the bat, does your love life feel like a movie you've already seen 100 times, just with a different cast? If you're kind of nodding along right now, even a little bit, then yeah, you're in the right place. Okay, first up, let's look at what we're calling a foundation of flaws. This is all about how some relationships are basically set up to fail from the very beginning, way before the first big argument ever happens. Think about how this whole thing starts. It often begins with having no real standards, right? You're just going off of vibes. And because you're running on vibes, it's super easy to ignore those little red flags that pop up. Pretty soon, you're not in love with the person in front of you, you're in love with their potential. And when you don't have any hard deal breakers, you might even lower your standards just so you don't have to be alone. It's like building a house on sand. This right here, this really gets to the heart of that whole falling for potential thing. The source material says it perfectly. You're not a renovation project. I mean, you can't fix another person. You can't just hope they'll magically turn into the version of them you have in your head. You have to date the person who's actually standing there. So if we know the foundation is bad, why do we stay? Well, a lot of the time, it comes down to this thing called the sunk cost fallacy. It's that little voice in your head that says, hey, I've already put 2 years into this. I can't just walk away now. But really, that's not logic talking. That's just a recipe for wasting another 2 years. All right, moving on to a really big one. Anxiety disguised as love. You know those butterflies you feel? Are they actually a sign of deep passion? Or could they be warning bells that your gut is desperately trying to ring?
This is where we get things so mixed up. You know those intense screaming matches followed by intense makeup sessions? You might think that's passion. The source just calls it what it is, damage. And that stomach-flipping feeling you get when they finally text you back, you might call it excitement, but it could actually be your internal alarm system going off. That need to be talking 24/7, it can feel like intimacy, but a lot of the time, it's just plain anxiety.
And this is what that anxious engine looks like when it's running. It's not just a feeling inside you, it turns into actions. Texting all day long, constantly checking to see when they were last online, obsessively scrolling through their ex's social media. See, this isn't connection, it's more like surveillance. It's all fueled by a deep fear of losing them, not the actual joy of being with them. And this quote just nails the whole dynamic, that push and pull. The moment they get distant, you start chasing even harder. We love to romanticize that chase, but the source is blunt. That's addiction. It's a cycle that feels so intense and important in the moment, but in the end, it just leaves you feeling completely drained. Okay, so we've got a shaky foundation, and we're mistaking anxiety for true love. So what happens when a normal disagreement comes up? Well, that brings us to section 3, how you fight to lose and how simple arguments turn into relationship-ending battles. This is pretty much the playbook for a fight that's going nowhere good. It almost never starts with the big stuff. It starts with just yelling instead of talking. Then you bring up that one thing they did 6 months ago because, you're keeping a running tally. That escalates into personal attacks and name-calling, and before you know it, you're not trying to solve the problem anymore, you're just trying to win. And when the fighting gets to be too much, you might see this happen. Stonewalling. This is way more than just giving someone the silent treatment. It's a total shutdown. You just become a brick wall. And the source uses a really powerful phrase for this, calling it emotional abandonment. You are literally abandoning your partner right in the middle of a conflict. And this is where all those bad fights ultimately lead. The relationship stops being a partnership and it turns into a courtroom. You're not on the same team anymore. You're just two lawyers on opposite sides, gathering evidence against each other, trying to build a case for why you're right, instead of, building a life together. Which, of course, brings us to the devastating end result of fighting this way. This quote says everything you need to know. Sure, you can win the argument, you can get the last word, you can prove you were right all along. But what good is that victory if you've just broken the trust that was holding the entire relationship together? Okay, for our last section, we need to zoom all the way out. We've seen how these relationships start, how they feel, and how they fall apart. Now it's time to face the one single, really uncomfortable truth that they all share. You know how it goes. The last relationship ends, and eventually you meet someone new. And it feels so different. It's exciting,
But then, a few months later, the same old problems start creeping in. The same fights, the same insecurities. It's a completely new person, but the story is playing out the exact same way. Why does that happen?
It happens because there is only one thing, one single common denominator in every single one of your failed relationships. And that one thing is you. And this is the final, ultimate trap that keeps the cycle going. If you truly believe that every single person you've ever dated was the toxic one or the crazy one, you might be missing the pattern. The source points out that even if they were 70% of the problem, you absolutely have to look at your 30%. If you don't take accountability for your part, nothing is ever going to change. And that leaves us with the most important idea in this entire list. This is the real takeaway. You cannot control other people. You can't change them. The only piece of this entire puzzle that you have any power over is yourself. The pattern doesn't stop until you decide to stop it. So, I guess the only question left is, will you?